Welcome to your Back to Body Yoga Challenge. So this morning I want to teach you how to make the practice easy, because really, you may hear me say this over and over again, you should be able to practice any class anywhere in the world with whoever, whenever, simply because it's your body and you only need to do what suits your body and avoid what doesn't, of course. If there's pain, there is no gain. And so the key is to modify. Modify. In other words, make it easy. You often hear in Australia people say, take it easy, right? Well, that's the name of the game, certainly with a yoga asana practice, is take it easy. Of course, we want to challenge ourselves and see how deep we can go in certain poses, but the moment we start to exert ourselves, or the moment we start to strain, then we're not doing yoga, we're just doing exercise. And so it doesn't matter what body type you are, it doesn't matter how new, how much of a beginner you are to the practice. I'm just going to show you some simple techniques that enable you to make it easier. And so the first thing is, I highly encourage you to have some blocks. Now, these are pretty fancy looking blocks. They're kind of nice for the wrist when in some poses, doing some variations, but you can get any sort of blocks, wooden blocks, foam blocks. You can use water bottles. I've seen them used a lot in yoga studios, just holding a water bottle. You need to be careful, of course, if you've got something too high. If you're balancing on one leg and you're supporting yourself with a hand, there's a risk that you could fall down, and if your arm jams into the floor, you could dislocate your shoulder. So there's precautions you need to take when using props, but certainly a good couple of props would be useful. And so that way, particularly when we're like stepping forwards from a downward dog, we can have that extra arm length because we've got the use of blocks. So it's a lot easier to step forwards, because I know for a few people, stepping forwards is the issue, right? You're kind of like, you've got to jump up there. And I'm actually going to demonstrate as though my body is super stiff and tight, which I know for some of you, that's exactly how it is, right? And that's okay. There's nothing in any of the yoga texts that talk about flexibility or strength as the goal. Flexibility and strength are byproducts of the practice. The goal is just to be in your body, right? That's why we're calling it back to body, right? Just be in your body. You'll notice what's, limiting you. Sometimes it's muscular tension. Sometimes it's skeletal compression. But, particularly for more floppy types of students, you need to be careful that you're not going into full range, locking out your joints, So anyway, I won't go too much on that, but let's just look at certainly a few postures that are essential. Firstly, child's pose. Now, traditionally, child's pose is taught with knees together. And if that's an option for you, you might get a nicer stretch or release for the lower back. However, the modification is knees wide. If you find that you still can't get your head to the floor, that's where your blocks, your props might come in handy. You can actually literally rest your head on a block or a couple of props or even a pillow. If you've got sinus issues and finding that having your head face down may block you up, you can also just turn your head to the side. All right, but again, it's your body. You need to do what suits you. Child's pose is a great way of releasing the lower back. Now, you remember from the foundations practice, which I hope you've watched. If you haven't, please do. The foundations of a young practice is ujjayi breath is paramount. Subtle contraction of your throat. Now, as you prepare yourself for downward dog, the way we want to find it initially is to start with a high push-up position, right? So just like you're taking a push-up, high push-up, your legs need to be strong. In fact, this pose is called Dandasana, which translates as staff posture. And just like Moses' staff that split the Red Sea, it sort of insinuates strength and power. It's like a strong pose. So check your wrist creases. We want to make sure the wrist creases are slightly turned out, never slightly turned in. Wrist creases, you could say parallel to the front edge of your mat. I just like to slightly turn them out. And then we want to spread the fingers and push the fingertips down into the floor. Now let's just modify this straight up. So rather than drop the knees straight down, come onto the tippy toes, drop your knees forwards and down. And that way you can have your knees to the floor and a straight spine. All right. So check those wrist creases. Now the outer edge of the shoulder should bisect the middle of the wrist. So that's how wide your hands are. And you can check in on your mat, like you're always going to place the hands the same place. So really notice, for me, my little finger sticks off the edge of the mat. You're going to find whatever works for you, but outer edge of the shoulder bisects the middle of the wrist. And here we want to find, because too often people collapse through the spine, right? Or others, they'll be rounding the spine excessively. What we're looking for is the natural curvature of the spine. And you actually want to look for that in most postures. Of course, if you're back bending, forward bending, you might lose a bit of that, but mostly we want to find neutral spine, right? And so play around with your pelvis. So often you hear us say sit bones back. You hear teachers say sit bones up or back. But that should always be balanced with, if you can imagine your tailbone, it's unlike a dog that sticks out this way, our tailbone wraps in. And so we say sit bones back, but then pull the tailbone forwards. But if we just said pull the tailbone forwards, the tailbone towards your chin, you're going to round that lower back. So it's a balancing cue. Sit bones back and then tuck that tailbone. And what you're looking for is this natural curve through the lower back. So see if you can maintain that. Or I should point out also the upper back. Try this. Take the upper spine towards the floor. Now you feel your rhomboids engaged, those muscles between your shoulder blades. And then take the spine away from the floor. That's protracting. That's retracting. Try that a few times. Protraction, retraction. We actually want to keep a balance of that. So we're not excessively retracting nor protracting. It's somewhere in between, right? So we want to look forwards, kind of, just not to jam the neck, but rather to engage those rhomboids. And we want to push down to find those engagement with serratus anterior, right? They're the muscles that create the protraction. That's the protraction. The rhomboids create retraction. So you want to find a balance of the two, drawing just forward, so retract, push down to find those serratus anterior, creating the protraction. So see if you can keep that now. Fingers pressed down, and then lift the knees off the floor. See if you can find high push-up. Now, the correct position for your hands and feet is shoulders here, above elbows, above wrists. Never let the elbows come forwards of the wrists, and don't let the elbows go too far back behind the wrists. So elbows may be slightly behind the wrists. Feet are hip width apart. Legs are engaged. Sit bones are back. Your pelvic floor is on. So you're lifting or scooping that tailbone forwards, but without dropping sit bones. Balancing cue, right? Sit bones back, pelvic floor on. Now you're just going to bend your knees and take your butt to the sky for downward dog. Good. Now, if you walked your feet up, you're going to find that's going to compromise you when you do a high to low push-up. So you want to keep your feet back there, get a nice good stretch. Those of you that are hypermobile, you're going to find your front ribs flaring. So we want to pull those front ribs in. That's it. And let's bend the knees so as we can really get that length to lower back. We're bending the knees deep so we can turn the sit bones up to the sky. Right? That's it. Pelvic floor on. So that's a good modification. Now, if you want to explore straightening one leg, go for it. Good. Stretch out through the Achilles and calf, and then bend the other leg, stretch out the other. That's it. But for many of you, I imagine this is your downward dog. Knees are bent, and that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. It's a good option. And then when we walk to the top, normally we empty our lungs first, and then we walk on a no breath. And you could like do little pitter patter. It doesn't really matter how you get up there, but just get to the top of your mat, right? And then check your feet. Always ensure that your toes are turned ever so slightly in. All right, never let the toes turn out, because if you do that, you start compressing into your sacroiliac joint. So let's keep the toes slightly turned in. I always like to have my feet slightly wider because my glutes, hips are pretty tight. So same for you. I'd encourage you to take the feet wider for some. Others that are more floppy. There are two types of students, floppies and stiffies. And actually the stiffies are the safer ones. So it's the floppies we've got to be careful of. But those of you that are more flexy, you can have your toes turned slightly in. All right, don't get carried away with thought with that. And then interlace the arm, one hand above, the other one below. Bend the knees. To modify again, we're just placing the elbows to the knees. Right? I know some of you are super tight, and that's okay. So you can just modify, hardly folding, but little by little you want to see if you can let go, let go, let go. And you'll find as you warm up, and as you continue with your effort to practice regularly, all of a sudden your body's going to start to release all that muscular tension, start to hydrate your fascia, and before you know it, you'll have increased mobility, range of mobility. Find that ujjayi breath. Good. So you notice my knees are still bent. Only if you can keep your chest on your thighs would you straighten your legs. So imagine your nipples, you want to crazy glue your nipples to your thighs. All right, and if you take your nipples off your thighs, you're going to tear them off. So make sure that you keep your knees bent to keep those nipples on your thighs. Or at least no more than, 10 centimeters maximum away from your thighs. So bending the knees is a really good option for most forward folds for most people. The main reason is this lower back needs to be an acute angle that's less than 90 degrees, as opposed to an obtuse angle, which is where the lower back is excessively rounding. It's the unnatural curve that we don't want to put pressure on that region width. So good bend to the knees is a good option for all forward folds. When we come up, traditional schools sometimes even taught the arms reach forwards. That's a lot of load for the lower back. If you're super strong and more experienced, by all means, you might choose that. Intermediates might take their arms out wide when you come up. In a classroom environment, that can sometimes knock people out. So my preferred method, like a skier that bolts downhill, right? The arms go back. This is going to put less load on the lower back as the weight is back here. And it's a lot safer. So as we exhale, we fall forwards. And then arms go back to stand up with a straight spine if possible. And then like you're splashing your face, bring your hands through the center. Reach up to the sky. Now, if you can bring the hands together without wearing your shoulders as earrings, by all means. For most though, keeping the hands wide, turning little fingers in is useful. Check in that those front ribs don't flare. So we're going to pull front ribs in, little fingers in. Good. And so now we're quite strong in the body here. Find your feet. Toes are turned slightly in. Knees are broadening out. Inner and outer thighs draw back. So knees broadening, inner and outer thighs back. Lift the pelvic floor, front ribs in, little fingers turn in, shoulders back. Center of the throat pulls towards the back of the neck and the crown of the head lifts up. It's called Tadasana. It means mountain pose. Again, it insinuates strength, or like a mountain, unaffected by the storms that blows around it. This alignment is really what you're looking for in each pose. Strong, but also at the same time relaxed. So you're breathing in a really calm way. Right, take a deep breath in. As you fall forward, hands through the heart, deep bend to your knees, and empty your lungs. Good. Now, sometimes we're going to halfway lift. Right, that's a good option. Other times you're actually just going to step back to downward dog. But either way, it's an inhalation. All right, and then set your hands, step those feet back to where they were before. So nice long base. Right, good. Now, this way, when you come into a high push-up, and I like to roll, I just like to bend the knees and feel the spine and roll it. I just find that's a really nice way of lubricating the spine each day, rolling the spine. But notice now my shoulders, elbows, wrists are in one straight line. So please make sure you do the same. Don't let the elbows come forwards, don't let the elbows go back. Again, we drop the knees forwards and down. Good. And then thumbs hug to the midline. Really important to get those biceps engaged. Hug the thumbs in, come forwards. Check the elbows, they don't move. The elbows stay where they're at. Come forwards, keep the shoulders off the floor, just the chest goes down. So that's the retraction. We don't want to round. We never want to lower, rolling the shoulders forwards. That's going to dump into the head of the bicep tendon, right in the front of the shoulder. All right, so really important. Let's try that again. So come back to your knees into a high push-up. Check that your shoulders, elbows, wrists run one straight line. Draw the chest forwards. So you're kind of looking forwards, but without jamming your neck. Look forwards, thumbs hug in, come forwards to lay down, shoulders off the floor. Keep squeezing shoulder blades in together. That's the way. Now, Cobra Pose. Initially, you might have the feet just on the balls so as to really recognize that the heels aren't rolling out or the heels aren't rolling in. Eventually, feet flat, but with that awareness, not letting the heels roll in, not letting the heels roll out. Right? So it's neutral thighs by adjusting the feet. Good. At this point, maybe hands can slightly lift because really we want to be doing all the work in the back as opposed to using the hands. If you're more flexy, again for the floppies, and this is something I've stopped doing now, it's really not suitable for me, that is to press the feet down, lift the thighs off the floor and find upward dog. But you've got to pull your belly in really strong if you're doing that. Right? Even the use of blocks for me, typically over the years have been useful to give me that extra bend. But thighs are off the floor and core is on. That's called upward dog. And that is a variation. We'll meet back in child's pose. So just because others can do certain poses or just because you see demonstrations teaching certain poses certain ways doesn't mean you need to do it. Play it safe. Take it easy. That really is the name of the game. There's no points for flexibility. Right? The goal is to be in your body. And I have no doubt, no matter what type of body you have, that if you just go through the flow, modify it, adapt it to suit yourself, at the end of it, you're just going to feel great. It's hard not to. Just the movement, and activating different muscle groups, stretching all parts of your body. It's hard not to feel great. So again, when you're ready, come back to your hands and knees. Yep, let's find that position for hands and feet for your downward dog. So make sure shoulders, elbows, wrists, one straight line, feet are hip width apart. Good. From there, bend the knees. Take downward dog. Use the blocks if you've got them. if you need them. Right? Again, so what we're going to find is the blocks help you by giving you longer arms, right? Particularly if you've got tight hip flexors. It's going to help you to walk to the top of your mat. Right? Take a halfway lift. So that's a flat back and a deep breath in. Now notice that flat back. Again, if you're really tight, good. Some of you are going to be rounding, right, quite awkwardly. So a good deep bend to the knees, maybe hands to the shins. The sit bones are turning back. I've got length through my spine. Take an inhale. Forward fold, exhale. Good. Stand up. So arms go back. Then reach through, splash your face. Forward fold. Breathe it out. Good. As you halfway lift, step back to downward dog. So you're inhaling all the way. Bend your knees and roll to high plank, low plank. So knees drop down. We lay down. Shoulders off the floor. Cobra Pose. Inhale. Downward dog. So let's tuck the toes. Unless you're experienced, if you've got strong hip flexors and strong frontal hip points, by all means you can keep the feet flat. So I'll demonstrate that. We're going to, from the Cobra Pose, only for experienced students. I'm going to say experienced. If you've got the strength of your hip flexors, you could press up and roll over the toes that way. All right? So it really is personal preference. For most, it's perfectly fine just to tuck the toes. The thumbs hug in, just like when you're lowering down, the palms flat, the thumbs hug in to press into your downward dog. All right? Cool. Let's just step right foot forward. Now, some I know, this is where, again, the blocks are useful. You see, it makes it a lot easier for me to step forwards. Right? If I haven't got the blocks, I can still do it. Probably getting close to that point in my life where I won't be able to, and some of you probably already can't. Right? So it's going to be like a step, 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 step that foot forward, and then wiggle the back foot back, right? Drop the back knee to modify. Good option for some as you take crescent lunge, right? So good option. Again, it's just an easier variation. Whenever you hear step the right foot forwards into crescent lunge, you can drop that back knee down. Cool. Good. Take a deep breath in, huh? Now as we go to warrior two, to modify, I'm going to take my hands down, lift the back knee, spin the back foot flat, and come up. Warrior two. It's really simple to modify your practice. Make sure that front knee, and like if you have front leg kind of straight, that's okay. But if you can, take it low, but never let the knee come forwards of your front heel. To keep the front knee broadening. Back foot is flat. Really important that you're not, if you remember that talk about bunders, bunda in your knee, so back foot flat, so there's muscle engagement around that back knee, front knee tracking in line with the right little toe. And one of the reasons you need to understand here, if you let that front knee collapse in, then the head of the femur bone in the acetabulum here is actually leveraging out, and it can really create issues around the labrum in the hip. So always keep front knee broadening, tracking in line with the little toe. That way the head of the femur bone is drawing into the hip socket. Really important, all standing postures that you're aware of that. Right, take a long exhale, sink low. Reverse the warrior. Good. I like to left hand forwards. This really helps to engage core. Either way, make sure your core is on. Drishti. Eyes on one point. I like the left big toe. You might have a mark on the ceiling if you prefer to look up. That's okay too. But keep your eyes steady. Good. And then from here, as we windmill down, again, use of blocks will be useful for some. The back heel lifts. Good, because this is the issue for some. They can't get that leg up. They can't lift it. And so it's simple. Drop the back knee if you need to. Set the foot back. Come back to downward dog. Roll yourself, knees down, lay down. Ooh. Cobra pose. Good. Thumbs hug in, tuck the toes. Downward dog. That's it. Then left leg steps forwards. Again, little steps. Boom. Even if you drop that back knee straight up, just lift that left foot up. Right? So many easy ways of doing things. Then that crescent lunge. So again, back knee on the floor. Good. That's the option. Of course, you're welcome to lift the back knee off the floor, but you'll find plenty of those in the other classes. And you may not hear me offer you the modifications in some practices. So please just take them. Don't be a sheep and be a complete follower and just do everything that someone tells you. Of course not. Right? You only do what is good for you. If it doesn't feel safe, if there's pain, there's no gain. So please take care. Explore the posture. You're in the pose. You're not just kind of going through the motions. You're feeling it. Where do you feel the stretch? Can you open up more? Can you lengthen side body, front ribs in, neck edges long? And this way, and then we're going to open up to warrior two. So again, the modification would be hands down, lift the back knee, spin that back foot flat. So heels on one line, unless you're really tight, I'd go heels maybe more hip width apart. Then find the warrior two pose. Again, check in on that front knee broadening in line with the left little toe, super important. Back foot is flat, so you're engaging the muscle in that back knee. We're not wearing the shoulders as earrings, so we're relaxing the shoulders. Good. Notice again, sit bones are turning back, pelvic floor lifting. Right, all these little awareness points. You often hear me cue alignment points. You just want to feel it, focus on it. And then just bring your attention to your breath. Eyes resting to your left middle finger. Good. I'm just going to do one of those in flow. So empty your lungs, sink low. Well, let's reverse the warrior first. Good. So again, choose the point to rest your gaze. Make sure that front foot's lunging nice and low. Front knee's lunging low, but not forwards of your left heel. So left knee above your heel. Good. Inhale. And then you're going to windmill to the floor. Again, I like the use of blocks to modify. You could just, we're going to step back to down dog. Roll to high plank. So good option. Drop the knees forwards and down. Hands hug in to lay down. Shoulders off. Cobra pose. Breathe in. Good. Downward dog. Breathe out. Now step that right foot forwards to crescent lunge. Boom, boom, boom. Drop the back knee. Reach up. Warrior two. Exhale. Open up. Reverse the warrior. Inhale. Good. Let's go downward dog. High plank, low plank, all on an out breath. Knees are down to modify. Shoulders off. Cobra. Tuck toes. Thumbs hug in. Down dog. Good. Slowly step that left foot forwards. As awkward as it might be, get it forwards. That's it. Reach up. Good. And then open up. Warrior two. Reverse the warrior. Windmill back down. Downward dog. Get those feet back. Roll high plank. Knees down. Low plank. Cobra. Good. Into chart. Good. Come up onto your knees. Now, if you've got a block, and again, they're really useful because here I can place it between the legs because I want to make sure that when I back bend, I'm not letting the inner thighs draw forwards or compressing the lower back with external rotation of the hips. Thighs remain neutral. Now, just as a modification, let's try camel pose. So, in this variation, hands stay on the lower back. Now, again, some people sort of let themselves go all the way back just so they can reach the heels. Right, kind of cheating. So we want to keep the thighs vertical. Same alignment, inner thighs back, pelvic floor lifts. Really inner and outer thighs back, so thighs are neutral. Pelvic floor lifts, core is on, elbows in, and that's it. That's as far as you need to go. Good. You're going to find that just as you practice consistently, your body will start to open up. Right? And before you know it, you'll be able to drop your hands to your heels, or you might find tucking the toes is the next step. Again, working to keep the thighs vertical. Core is on. Breathing. So again, just another example how you can modify, make the practice easy. All right. Release back into child's pose or come back to your knees. And so, it doesn't matter what posture comes your way, aim to make it easy. Do it in an easy way. So if we get to half pigeon, let's say, so right knee wider than the right little finger, right? This is dangerous pose because it can put pressure on the front knee. The knee is a hinge joint. It's not designed to rotate. So it's really a matter of rolling the hip open. If your hip's not open, then this heel needs to stay back, right? But you'll see some people that bring their front foot right up to the top, and that's okay. To do that, I might find using a block enables me to elevate the hips, and now I can get more external rotation front leg without putting pressure on the knee. Flexing the toes on that front foot should engage the muscle in that front knee, so that's the bunda, to protect it. Now again, let's say you haven't got a block and you still want to get a stretch, but you can't even stretch back because you can't get the back leg straight behind you. So that's okay. You just drop and bring the leg out to the side, right? There's always a way to modify. So we're in a half pigeon. Or this is more of a deer pose variation. So either way, you should feel it in your outer right hip, which is what we're targeting. Good. And then as you're ready, find your down dog. Anyway, so just make it gentle to release. It's often in the transitions where injuries are made. So please take care in your transitions in and out of postures to take that left knee forward. Again, using a block may be useful to elevate the hip. You might be able to draw that front shin forwards, toes flexed. Or again, you may just take that right leg out to the side for the deer pose variation. It really is just about breath and drishti, eyes steady, breath inflow as we quieten the mind. So physically, you get what you get. You want to modify, take care of your body. Don't be in a hurry to get anywhere. It's like you can't ask a mango to ripen before it's ready. Just let the body progressively over time open up without hankering after results. Just be strong in the practice, but also relax. It's super important. That's physical, but mentally we want to keep the mind focused on one point. So you're going to find this practice really is holistic. Balances the body and harmonizes the mind. Good, I'm not going to stay for too long. This really is just more of a modified demonstration class. Now we're going to come up and swing the right leg around. Now again, this is where I'm going to find sitting on block is really useful. Right foot outside the left knee. Now I probably couldn't do that without the block. The key here, I'm going to just turn around so you can see, is we've got to get both of the sit bones flat. So without the block, I'm going to find my right sit bone lifting as I twist to the right. And that's not good to twist a crooked spine like that. So sitting on a block to elevate the hips, right? Or just even placing the right foot to the inside of your left knee. You're twisting to the right with both sit bones down, right? So both sit bones flat, spine upright, neck edges long. Again, you're breathing. So I know some people find the classes that I offer a little bit too challenging. I've had feedback on too hard. Others find it too easy. Right? And so those that find it too easy, you can challenge yourself with advanced variations like binds, wrapping the arms around. If you've got those long arms, you could bind. You can take other variations in every single pose generally, or you're modifying it, right? For those that find it hard. Either way, your body, do what's best for you. Let's change sides. Again, sitting on a block may be useful. If you haven't got a block, like just go online, check out foam blocks and have it ordered to you within 5 days thereabouts, right? Have 2. I would recommend 2 blocks is always useful. Always practice with 2 blocks. Good. As you're ready to, facing forwards, remove the block. So now we're going to forward bend. With a forward bend, again, if you recall, knees bent. Right? Important. So as you reach up and fold, grab hold of the outside feet. The block's useful to keep the feet flat. But now you should keep that length through lower back. You could wiggle the feet forwards a little bit. See if you can keep the chest, again, now on your thighs. No more than 10 centimeters off your thighs. So a good bend to your knees is really useful. Some of you I know are going to be like that, and your legs out really wide. Well, let's just see if we can bring the legs together, right? and then just walk the feet as far forwards as I go with the feet together, because we don't want the knees splaying wide. All right, so even if that's where you're at, that's fine. Fold forwards like that if you need to. And little by little, keep breathing, relaxing into the pose. Let your muscles create a new muscle memory to go, oh, this is safe. The reason why many of you are stiff, it's just because you haven't moved to that range so often, right? And so the muscles don't remember it, so they tense up to protect. A myotatic stretch reflex engages the muscle to protect it, right? So if you breathe in a pose, some say after 10 seconds, you're going to find that body starts to release and you can go a little deeper. You might find legs go further forwards, but don't let the knees splay wide. Good job. Now, same with Purvottanasana. So with Purvottanasana, tabletop, the more advanced variations, hands back, fingers forward, shoulders pull back, legs straight. But for some, that's next to impossible. So again, just make it easy. Bend your knees, and lift your hips up, right? Wherever it's at, even if you're down here. Keep pressing down, find the strength. Balance it with ease, easy, conscious breath. Good. And then we're going to lay it down. Now, for a modified inversion, right? Shoulder stand is really intense. If you've not done much work, you got to be careful. The neck should not be pressing on the floor. I don't want you to look around as I'm doing. Right? Never look around in a shoulder stand. But firstly, this isn't the modification. Right? I'm just demonstrating this, that ideally there's real freedom in the neck. There's no pressure of the neck on the floor. If that's not happening, if you find, whoa, that's too intense, well, you could just sit on the hands if you haven't got a block and just float your legs up to the sky. That's it. And there's your modified inversion. Great pose to do every day. Changes the high and low pressure system in the arteries of the legs and allows for more oxygenated blood to enter into the brain. It's a very beneficial pose just to take your legs up. Good option to also uproot all your beliefs, all your judgments, all your notions and concepts. And for a moment, just be free, just as you always are, but perhaps too often lost in conceptual thinking, conditioned mind, which, if you recall, the definition of yoga is the cessation of the conditioned mind. So just be here. Just be here. Time is always now. Good. As you're ready to, it's going to release into Shavasana. Now this pose, a lot of people don't really give it justice. Now if you find back pain, here again the blocks will be useful to place underneath your legs. Pillow underneath your legs, cushion, bolster underneath your legs. That should take a lot of the load off the lower back. It should release the lower back so you can find that's a little bit more comfortable. For some, once you're in this pose, the goal is to not move. So make all adjustments initially. No longer control the breath in this pose, but certainly observing the natural breath may be useful. And just relax and let go. Thank you so much for joining me. Wishing you a wonderful day. If you have any questions, I'll see you on the live call. Or by all means, email me direct. Thanks and namaste.